On today's episode, we talk about how silence is not neutral. A lot of organizations are struggling with how they address some of the recent crises that have been happening in America and abroad as well. And we want to go deeper and think about why this is happening and ways that leaders can authentically and organizations can authentically find a voice to support their people through these times.
That's the elephant in the room is there's something happening in corporate organizations where silence is being accepted.
Right? When they are quiet, they are putting a stake in the sand that says either it's too politicized for us to say something and we're worried about the implications of it, or if we just ignore it, it will go away. It does not go away.
Nope.
I'm going to say this very directly. Don't be silent. Do not be silent.
Welcome to Brave Proximity, the space where leaders and changemakers finally exhale, tell the truth, and get the validation they rarely receive. This is not a how-to podcast. This is not motivational wallpaper or corporate comfort language. Here, the messy, is it just me? Moments become turning points. I'm Marissa Green.
I'm Susan Page, and we are futurists and practitioners who have spent decades inside turbulence, helping leaders who care deeply navigate culture, crisis, egos, expectations, and everything in between. We've seen the gap between what leaders and changemakers feel and what they're allowed to say. Brave Proximity is a place to close that gap. Each episode starts with the elephant in the room, often disguised as a pet peeve, and we follow it to the deeper truth underneath. We do not just talk about leadership. We get close to what leadership actually feels like.
We can't build trust if we aren't willing to see what's outside of our Zoom or office windows. So, Susan, I know this is a tough one given the moment that we're in the United States and around the world, but I'm curious, what tragedy are you seeing outside your window that no one is addressing in corporate America?
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because it's not just a tragedy, it's multiple tragedies. And so for people that don't know, I live in St. Paul, Minnesota. I'm born and raised in Minnesota. I've been in the Twin Cities for the past decade. I'm very proud of the Twin Cities. We've navigated a lot over the last couple of years. And there's been so many beautiful examples of community here. Mm-hmm. It's very difficult. There's lots of stuff on the news. There's lots of politics. But I think one of the most heartwarming and honestly learning moments for me has been how well my children's schools have navigated through this situation by not ignoring what is literally hitting us in the face every single minute, every single day. And it made me reflect on a couple things. We don't separate ourselves. We don't go to school. We don't go to work and say, well, I'm just going to forget about that for a while, especially with the severity of the offenses that are being committed and the loss of life that is happening. And I want to talk about what does good leadership look like? What does an organizational commitment look like? They understand that silence is not neutral. Right. When they are quiet, they are putting a stake in the sand that says either it's too politicized for us to say something and we're worried about the implications of it, or if we just ignore it, it will go away. And neither of those. Yeah, we know from a behavioral standpoint. I am not an organizational psychologist, but I have spent a lot of time in organizations. It does not go away.
No, stirs.
Yes, silence, not taking a side, not taking a stand is worse than taking a stab and being brave enough to say, we believe in humanity, right? And I'd be very interested to see who says, well, that's BS that you believe in humanity. I mean, that's my story that I'm sitting with is like, if you want to look at what good looks like, I am so proud of many of the school districts in the Twin Cities for taking a stand for saying we are not okay, but we know that school provides community. So whatever way that we need to do this, so just think about inside of an organization, whatever way we need to do this, if you need to do school online, but you still need the community, we're there for you. If you
Mhm.
need to take a couple days off because you saw something heinous in your neighborhood happen, take it off. We guess what? We have counselors here for you too to support you
Mhm.
through this tragedy.
Mhm. Mhm.
All of the things they're doing make me very proud, but also a model of what organizations should be doing as well.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And I think it brings forward the elephant in the room where our trusty elephant is coming in. Give her a little squeeze because I'm sure you need like the love
I know
too.
this very, very good squeeze for her. Yes.
But I think that's the elephant in the room is there's something happening in corporate organizations, not all, but a lot,
Yeah.
where silence is being accepted and not just silence in a public statement, right? At the time of our recording, it was just 2 days ago that CEOs actually came out to say anything about Minneapolis, but
Right.
even at the leader level, leaders often choose silence with their teams because they don't want to get into the discomfort of a tough conversation. And when we do that, one, that's like the elephant. Like, let's just call it what it is. People avoid
Mhm.
talking about this at work because we have been trained to leave everything at the door when we come in. But I
Mhm.
think what you and I want to be able to unpack a little bit today and talk through is that we're living through unprecedented times. We're living through
Mhm.
something that our generations have not seen. And we do, as leaders, need to decide how are we going to show up not silent? What is
Yes.
our way of stepping into this? And there's no exact right way. We are not here with a recipe of what everybody needs to go and say. We have some ideas for how you might enter those conversations, some ideas for how to give yourself grace in those conversations.
Mhm.
But this is a moment where we need to start opening our doors. I believe really strongly that by doing that, you're sort of decoupling the idea of we sit around working with each other all day long and we build these
Yes.
relationships and these connections. And when we're unwilling to sit in the saddest and most uncomfortable moments together, that is a loss of humanity. That is starting to look at each other not as humans or as people, but as robots. And
Yes.
we're going to do the AI episode another time, but we're going to have plenty of robots to do the unhuman stuff. Let's just sit in the discomfort together.
I'm going to train my AI robot to have empathy. As you were talking, I was thinking about, remember, and it still exists, is headlines of good leaders are empathetic, good leaders understand the human side of leading. And I worry because maybe, and I don't know as we're dissecting this, is we've over indexed so much on driving accountability, getting results, that we forget that the levers that drive those results, that drive accountability, have deep roots in understanding your people, being there, making them feel like they are worth something, making them feel like it is okay
Mhm.
to show up at work and be sad, be upset, and hold space for that, and then find ways to move forward. I think about people that have to be in an office every day, and what if your office is in the middle
Right?
of where all of this chaos is happening? Do
Yep.
you feel safe? Even like some of the most basic needs as a human, we should be asking as leaders, as organizations, do you feel safe? Do not say, well, we understand that some of you might not feel safe, but you have to be in the office 4 days a week.
Right. Right. We're going to force it anyway. We're going to make it
Yes.
happen. I just got that. I was
Yeah.
like just thinking it'd be very interesting if we could get in touch with people who are in different countries that have been through deep, deep tragedy and what was their approach in their corporate entities to create that kind of space. Sometimes I question, and again, this one's like all about discovering as we go because I don't think you and I have all the answers, but
No.
I'm not even sure that doing this requires empathy. Like, I want
Say
you to be
more.
empathetic. I want a leader to come at it with empathy because I think it makes for a better conversation. I think it makes people feel safer. I think it, creates an
Yeah.
environment where someone might be willing to share a little more. But I walk down the street and I see someone passing me by and I say hello. That has nothing to do with
Yes.
empathy and everything to do with being a connected human. And I think that creating space to say, look, stuff is messy right now and I don't have the answers. I'm not even sure how I feel about it cuz I'm not that empathetic. Whatever the person needs to say, but just being
Yeah.
willing to put it out on the page. And I think in the same realm, I also don't think it needs to be political at all. I think
No.
that people can do this without being political and without even necessarily having to be empathetic. It's just about
Yeah.
turning on your dial of seeing another person and just sitting in the space together.
I completely agree. And I love that we're challenging this idea of empathy, not to get sidetracked, but unhoused people, right?
Mhm.
When I
Mhm.
see somebody unhoused, I look them in the eye. I
Yep.
just always do. It wasn't something that I did growing up, but it's something that as I practice being a good leader, being a good human, I read a lot about what makes people feel seen and heard. And
Mhm.
and so I'm just going back to that is maybe it's my tendency, maybe it's not exactly empathy, but maybe it's simply I want to make sure people feel seen and
Mhm.
that I acknowledge what they're in. I also want to bring up a provocative comment that somebody, a former CHRO who I really admire, said recently is like, I don't know if an organization should be in charge of addressing a lot of
Mm.
these
Mhm.
things and
Mhm.
making people feel comfortable, and didn't say it provocative at all, but I think it's okay for somebody to say we can't be everything to everyone. And that
Yeah.
is not what this episode is about.
No.
What this episode is about is as a single person who is
Mhm.
contributing to an organizational dynamic and culture and trying to, honestly get the best performance out of somebody, it is essential that they are seen. And their being seen doesn't have one facet of that strategy deck is due, give it to me.
Right, right. Totally, totally. And I also think like this is a huge underpinning of our whole idea of brave proximity. I think it's easy to look someone in the eye. It's easy to, "Hey, how's your day going?" when things are good. Those are the easy
Absolutely.
moments in life to sit and bear a little bit, right? Be a little bit vulnerable.
Yes.
But there's something that happens in us humans and in particular in these corporate environments where when shit gets tough, people start to back away. I mean, I know you and I have both left organizations and this is a very simple example of something that's not super tragic, but like when you leave a job, there are people who don't reach out to say good luck.
1,000%. Who were sitting next to you the
Yes,
day before.
yes,
And wait, oh, we're like, oh, I love working with you. And then it's like, wait, am
right,
I even in their phone anymore? Like
right.
nothing.
Right. And I think this like these moments in our society and in culture that are happening more frequently now, these are even more important moments to show up. Like these are the moments where especially if you are working together every single day, you need to ask and like, create space. And you and I have both worked with leaders through many tragedies, but I go back to George Floyd's murder, I go back to the
Yeah.
pandemic and times where we were really coaching every single day how
Mhm.
to have these conversations. And the fear of getting it wrong often means that someone doesn't step into it. They're more
Yep.
afraid of offending someone, not saying the right thing. And that, again, is one of these underpinnings of brave proximity. It's like you do it anyway. You do it anyway.
Yes.
You do it scared. You mess up and you apologize. I have not done this perfectly
Apologize.
my whole career. I've messed up. I've had said the wrong thing. I've had been called out, had people say, like, oh, Marissa, you never should have said that. I was like, so you don't have to get it right. That's not what it's about. I just think it's really interesting how, and again, it's very human nature to allow our fear of failure to keep us from stepping into something. It's just also in these moments, stepping in is all we have,
It's
all we have.
all that we have. There was something that you and I have talked about before too, of these performance cultures. And
Mm-hmm.
I and there's some through lines of things that Brave Proximity surfaces a lot about how leaders show up. And one of them is the leaders that are always on have to feel like they have all the answers and are
Mm-hmm.
performing as if somebody's going to post clips of them on an Instagram carousel, and they're going to be, that was the most graceful, most tactful thing that anybody's ever said. And in these moments, I would say, forget all of that.
All
Be
of it.
raw. And even if your raw is just sitting in silence with somebody, when the shit hits the fan and it goes really bad, and people are like, I'm going to bring them a sandwich. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And then sometimes for me personally, I'm like, can you just sit with me? Can you just sit
Mm-hmm.
with me and let me just go riff, say what was unfair, say what I could have done better? And I liken this to just do something. If somebody would call me in this moment and say, I know you're hurting, I
Mm-hmm.
don't have the answers, I am here for you.
Mm-hmm.
What can I do to help? And
Mm-hmm.
I would definitely say, sometimes I'm like, can you just tell me one thing that was joyful for you today?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Sometimes that's what someone needs is just another person to bounce some joy back to them or to have a moment outside of it. I think for a lot of leaders, you get caught up in how am I going to solve it for them? How am I going to make it
Yes.
better? How am I going to fix?
Fixers.
And like this is not your job to fix all this stuff. You
No,
don't have to.
no.
You don't have to. And sometimes it's just a question like, hey, I know this might be impacting you. Obviously, I think as people listen to the podcast, they're going to know how we align politically or from a values led place. But I'm also a
Yes.
big believer that I don't really think in this moment it matters where you align politically. What's happening is impacting us. Like
Hmm.
even if you're like out on the street, like, yes, ICE, go do your thing, there's a momentum and like a field of energy that's being created by all of these different circumstances that are happening. And I think that there is this space in the middle where everybody can just be a human and say, it's impacting me.
Yes, yes. And I believe the best leaders are human. It's values based leadership. And even if you stand for something that others may not, your reasons could be very much aligned from a values. I don't believe in
Yep.
violence. I
Right.
don't believe in, I believe that everybody has the right to do a job. It could be all sorts of very neutral things that you can align, you can get on board with. And you have a big phrase, and let's go kind of into the reframe, is
Mm-hmm.
about curiosity
Mm-hmm.
over chaos.
Mm-hmm.
I love that line. It runs true, just like Brave Proximity does for me, across my values.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the reframe starts with being curious,
Mm-hmm.
and being curious about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
How am I doing? What am I carrying? The other day, I was going into yoga, and I no lie, and I know not everybody's going to be able to see us, but I literally felt like my shoulders were in my ears. I
Oh.
was so tense. I had so much anxiety. Now, number one, it's like the polar vortex here. So it's been so cold. So one of it is like I've just been cold the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
But number two is just a constant state of what's next?
Mm-hmm.
What's next?
Mm-hmm.
And I think I have to check myself as a mother, and also as somebody who's coaching others, and working with clients and making sure that I can add value, but I'm also a human too. So
Right.
I know our reframe is also about taking care of yourself so that you
Mm-hmm.
can take care of others.
Mm-hmm.
And don't feel guilty about that. If you
Right.
need to call in sick, if you need to level up to your leader and say, can you help? Can you lean in? I am very vulnerable right now. I don't know if this will be productive. Here's what I want. Can you
Mm-hmm.
help me?
Mm-hmm.
Ask for the help.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. Take care of ourselves. I think that's a really important reframe. And I think also an important reframe of preparing for these kind of conversations. I think we skip
Yes.
that part. We get
Yes.
so keyed into what am I going to say? How am I going to start this? What's the question I'm going to ask? That we forget to serve ourselves first and take a minute to
Mm-hmm.
pause. So, for example, if you're getting on a call with a team member, one, you don't have to do this in a group setting. Leaders start to feel like they need to be up on a soapbox declaring how they feel about the tragedy and what's been happening because we see that's the performance that a larger part of the
Performative.
organization might do. You don't have to do that. You don't have to, in a group setting, make your point of view known on the topic or situation. It can be as simple as sitting in a one on one conversation and asking how are you? Literally allow it to be that simple. But before you do it, serve yourself for a minute. Allow yourself a moment to, how do I
Yes.
feel about this? And not, what do I think about it? Not what's my opinion on what's happening. It's
Yes.
how does this thing that's going on outside of my office or outside of the Zoom, how does it actually make me feel? And if you can ground in that before you ask someone else how it makes them feel, then you can actually hold the space for them. But honestly, if you're not willing to do that for yourself first, just take a minute and do that first. And then
Yeah.
I want to go back to the curiosity over chaos thing too, because I've been doing a lot of research on this as well around this idea of what happens in chaos and how
Uh-huh.
curiosity helps us evolve chaos into something better. And I found myself like really kind of eh, maybe in turmoil, not knowing what to do about how in tune to be with every single headline that's coming up, right?
Yes.
Sometimes part of serving ourselves and serving others is to not always be in the chaos, to find those
Hmm.
moments of joy. And you and I have talked about this, where obviously I don't live in Minneapolis right now. So I have the privilege of not being in it every single day. And I think that's then
Mm-hmm.
where I get in my head a little bit, where I'm like, well, people I love are suffering there. So I need to be in the news and in the headlines and sitting there with them. And then there's the flip side of people I know who are like, I can't, it's all too much, just separate me from it. And so and so I want to just say something about that idea of chaos, because there is a beauty of sitting in the chaos together and asking these questions
Yes.
and being willing to hold space does not mean we need to be spinning in the chaos. But if we can sit in it
Yep.
together, it is a part of our unity. It is a part of how we come together and we connect. And you don't have to be reading every headline that comes out in order to be able to hold that space. You don't have to be the expert on what's happening
It's not a
in
contest of
right.
who knows the most, who can cite, what's real, what's fake. And another thing that I'm going to stand behind, and I'm going to say this very directly, is don't be silent.
Yeah.
Do not be silent.
Mm-hmm.
That is the worst. If you, I mean, and not to be crude, but if you drive by a very bad car wreck and just decide to do this, this
Mm-hmm.
is the same.
Yeah.
You can look, you can have the feelings that you want. Don't not look, because
Mm-hmm.
the majority of your team is looking
Is
and
looking.
feeling. And I'm sorry, but you need to feel it too. Marissa, one of the beautiful things about you is you seek to understand all the
Mm-hmm.
time. And if that isn't your nature, there's a couple minor things that you could think about. Is put yourself in that situation. How might I feel? What would I want somebody to ask me? And move forward at that mini baby step, non-performative way. But I am going to say it again. Silence is not okay.
Yeah.
I have a yoga instructor that I love, and she said, I will never look away. Nothing that you are going to do will scare me.
Mm-hmm.
And as leaders, I take that seriously. Is
Mm-hmm.
if I have a team of people, there is nothing that I'm going to look away at. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to sit in it with them and figure it out. This
Yeah.
is one of those situations where we need to be okay with every piece of emotion. There's going to be icky, yucky, beautiful things that come out. We have to sit in it because
Mm-hmm.
you're a leader and you
Yep.
took on a team. And
Yep.
that is part of your role. And also, one last thing on this that I think you said earlier that I was like, there's such a low risk with this because nobody has the answers. So if you're
No.
sitting there saying, I'm so scared, rip that band aid off because
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing to be scared about here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing we're trying to create space for is for people to be able to do it in a way that's authentic to them. You and I are touchy feely in different ways than each other. And I am fully aware that there are a lot of people out there that aren't touchy feely at all, like don't want the emotion,
Yeah.
may not know how to hold the space for the emotion. And that's also okay. That doesn't give you a pass to not enter into doing this with your team or with individuals, and just opening the conversation, because you can also be authentic in that. You can say, look, this is my first time really bridging this type of conversation. I'm not sure if I'm going to do it perfectly, but at the very least, I wanted to create space. I just wanted to say that I see what's happening. I know it's probably hard. And then you can also say, and here are the resources in the company to help you with that. Like, you can find your
Absolutely.
most authentic way to do it.
Absolutely. Many times in an organization, there's so many people to tap into. Like you and I have both facilitated these conversations. I've done them on broader sense. I've had leaders just like that you have talked about that said, Susan, I'm not good at this. Could you come and help
Mhm.
me with this, do a 20-minute session at my meeting? And mainly too, so that they can participate. And
Right.
so think about how you leverage people that are very comfortable with this, that are really good at curating these spaces. Yes,
Mhm.
check. I made space for this in the way that was most authentic to me. And that was either not running the session, listening, or, jumping in as a participant. So there's
Mhm.
multiple ways to slice and dice this. But you are right, as I always say this, is do what's right for you. Do
Mhm.
what's right for you, Mike. Do what's right for you, Sarah. And they might look very different, but they're both right
They're
because they're
both
both
right.
right for you.
They're both right. Yeah. One other thing I want to say before we wrap up is there are going to be some people out there who need also a little bit of the business rationale for entering these conversations into
Yes,
the corporate space.
always.
They probably aren't listening to you and I, but just in case they found themselves here to the podcast, I want to give them a reason. And we're going to talk a lot about, the future and what we need in order to thrive in the future of work and the future of business. But holding ambiguity is one of the key success factors 3 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And part of doing that
Yep.
as a leader is sitting with other people in the ambiguity. It's not just
Yes.
about holding it yourself. In order to be an effective leader, you have to be able to sit with others, even if it's a leader of influence, right? And so I would say that what's happening now is creating these interesting spaces for you to practice holding ambiguity and holding it with other
Mini
people,
sprints.
mini sprints. And as sucky as they are, start stepping into them, because it will become the space for you to hold future ambiguity and lead
Yeah.
people into the future. And we're going to need more people who are capable of doing that.
I love that we brought it back to, and I think we always need to, is what does this mean for the bottom line? How does this drive revenue? How does this help more customers? Whatever, there's two segments is like, let's get the employee experience really well dialed in so that we can get the customer experience really well and dialed in. But just a couple things before we wrap on this is your customers are watching.
I was
They're
going
going
to
to know
say,
what's happening they're going to know what's happening in your organization. You decide
hello,
to be
Target. Are you
neutral.
listening,
Guess
Target?
what? Yes, guess what? You got a whole book of business that's departing. And the
Mm-hmm.
same with leaders is when we look back and we say, who do we want to promote? Who do we want leading us into the future? The leaders that can not only lead their teams through ambiguity, but lead their organizations through ambiguity, they're going to be the CEOs of the future that are going to be hopefully more women too but these are talents and skills that carry forward. And
Yeah.
sometimes we say a lot on here, we don't know.
Yeah.
But if you look at historically what good leadership looks like, it looks like navigating ambiguity. It looks like having the difficult conversations, and it has for a very long time.
Yeah.
So if you think that this isn't, if CEOs, board members, whoever is at the top of the organization that is questioning why would I even do this?
Hmm.
There's your answer, is
Hmm.
these skills are solid. They're going to take you through the future, and they're a direct tie to the revenue generation that organizations bring in. So I
Yep.
just again want to say silence is not neutral. So
Yeah.
do
Hmm.
something that is your truth, even if it's just making space.
Yep. I love that. I love that. And tell us how it goes. If you try this out, if you're willing
Yeah.
to practice it, if you find a method that works better for you than some of the ideas we talked about today, find us on LinkedIn, DM us, share your stories. Like we want to be able to bring back to the community really what works.
Yes, and I love that again, this is a community. We're here for each other. A lot of us are grieving right
Hmm.
now, and a lot of us are just trying to help one another. And that's why I love our listeners, is because I think we're all here for the betterment of each other, to feel valid. And for those of you that like have maybe leaders that aren't addressing this with you, we see you, we hear
Hmm.
you, we want to
Hmm.
hear from you. And that's what we've made this community for. So
Yes.
thank you for tuning in. It's a
Hmm.
good episode, Mari. It's a tough
Yeah.
one, but I think we got some good dissection, some good reframes. So I'm happy
Mhm.
about
Well,
that.
and thank you for sharing, Susan. We appreciate it.
Yep. Have a good day.